Hello, Angela Coté here, and we're back on the Field Coach Experts podcast. And I'm super excited to be here as always. It is such a treat to be able to share the things that we're learning and seeing in franchisee support. And we get to have amazing guests on with us to share their insights and their expertise. And so I'm excited to say today I am joined by Carly Arnott from Tutor Doctor, who is, I'm going to say, like my little sister. Carly, are you okay with me saying that?
Yes.
Okay. We've been connected for a number of years, but through just, I guess, our my personal relationship with the team at Tutor Doctor and the overall Clear Summit group, and when Carly and I started to get on calls and learn more about each other and what we believe, we're just like, oh, we need to keep this going. So welcome, Carly.
Thank you so much, Angela. It's such a pleasure to be asked to have a conversation with you. I think, as you mentioned, every time we connect, we push each other and learn from each other in different ways. And I love that we can always challenge each other's thinking as well based on our experience. And it's just always a pleasure getting to have this conversation. It's something I'm really passionate about when it comes to coaching and field support. It's my world. It's where I spend, every minute of my working life when I am working. I'm now on maternity leave, which is
Yeah.
another gift and joy in
Yes.
itself. But yeah, let's dive in. I'm excited.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I wasn't sure if we were going to mention that, but since we did, thank you for taking time away from your little one to come here and you juggle between being mom, being the working person, but right now you're for the most part just on maternity. I shouldn't say just. Oh my gosh, that sounded awful. You're on maternity leave and doing the most important and probably hardest job you'll ever do in your life of being full on with your little one. So thank you for taking the time. I've been there, and I know that that's precious.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, well, let's start by giving our listeners some context about your background.
Yes. So when it comes to coaching and performance, it's something that has really been deep rooted in my core since really I was very young. I started teaching and coaching dance and gymnastics quite early, dance when I was 13 or 14. I grew up doing competitive dance and gymnastics and all through high school into university. And something I'm very passionate about. I love working and coaching young people. And I also, one thing I've been passionate about is business. And I went to school to university for business at the same time as entertaining this passion of dance and gymnastics and having a little fun on the side, doing some TV shows that blend my acting and dance. And, in my mind at the time, I wanted to create a business around dance, and that's what I wanted to do. And coming out of university, it was time for me to really dive deeper into the business aspect of my passions. And I came across an opportunity where I could be a very fresh new franchisee field coach at Tutor Doctor. And essentially, I was responsible for coaching and supporting new franchisees launching their business in the first 6 months. And I, of course, had experience with school, but I didn't have actual franchise field coaching experience. So I was essentially as fresh as they come. And the business at the time was looking to support new franchise owners in the field. So I was flying out to franchisees anywhere, Canada, the US, and the UK, and I was working shoulder to shoulder with them in the field. And, I loved it. I was young, I had a lot of energy, and I loved to travel. And I just had a real passion for going out and supporting these owners that really grew over time. And, over the last 7.5 years of being with Tutor Doctor, my role has just expanded into, being a more senior coach, then coaching the coaches and managing the field support team, and then now overseeing our North American operations at Tutor Doctor. So it's definitely just been something I've lived and breathed and grown to really love and enjoy over the years.
And I'm sure that we'll get into, maybe this will come up as we go, but I'm sure it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows, right? And like you said, like just in case anybody didn't catch that, as fresh as they come, and that's what Carly's saying by that, and this is something we share, is having been these young, and I'm going to throw it in here, I'm going to say female boss's daughters, because so Carly's dad, for people that know Dan Monahan, is the founder of Clear Summit Group, and not that Carly, we joked before, you don't work for your dad when you work for the company, you're working for someone else, but you would have had that, like, this is a key thing, that you would have had that sort of, I don't know about target on your back, but like they're like who are you, this young female? What risk have you, like franchisees look at you and go, oh, you've never invested in a business. Like, what risk have you taken? Great, you went to school, but like, what do you really know? So you went through, I think we went through the same thing in our early days. And I don't know about you, but I, like what you said, I was excited to do it and, had all this energy. I definitely felt quickly, like early on, I got, shut down a little bit because I got those, people saying, well, what do you know about business? So when you listen to Carly, know that she's been through all of that as well. And that's why, and between your time in the early days to now leading the team, that you have seen what works and what doesn't work. And
Yes.
in my case, it was like, well, the business, go out there and coach franchisees. And I don't know, maybe you were lucky to get that. Did you get any coaching and training early on, or how did you know what to do in those early days?
Yes, everything you're saying is exactly my experience.
Are you
And
reliving it right now?
yes, I just to like a relatable moment, when I was first supporting franchisees, it was over the phone. We weren't using Zoom as much. And I love that because they couldn't see me. So
Right.
would get to hide behind the phone. And what scared me is when they would come into training and they would have
Mm,
to meet me and see me. And there's a number of instances where they would look at me for the first time and they would be discouraged. Like it was very clear to me that because of the way I looked and how young I was, that I was not adding credibility.
yeah.
And so, I did have to work very hard, and we're going to get into some details just in
Yeah.
terms of like how do you build credibility and trust with franchisees, and how do you have outcome-based conversations and hold accountability to their goals that are important to them, because ultimately when they win, we win. And
Mm,
you know, a, a great field coach isn't just somebody the franchisee, likes. It's somebody who can help them achieve their goals through outcome-based conversations. And I think a lot of those traits can be taught and coached and trained. So we'll get into that. But in terms of myself and my own journey, I had a lot of coaching over the years. And that's something that really gave me confidence and allowed me space to self-reflect on, my biases as a leader, my biases as somebody who's coaching a franchise owner. And I know that's something that you do heavily with your team, Angela, and just how important it is to give these field coaches support and space to self-reflect and improve on their own skills. And that's certainly
mhm.
something that I leaned into heavily.
Yeah, and so I just want to point a few things out that you said there I always like to make sure people catch some of the things that I think are really important because we get to see all different, things out there in terms of franchisee support. Is in itself, if people are looking for what is the DNA of a high performing field coach, it's like, oh, they've been a coach, maybe as a volunteer or in a job in the past. In your case, in dance and the things that you've done, that's a great starting point for sure. I want to also just clarify for people, in case we're using the term field coach, we use that term because, like at AC Inc., because we just think it's kind of generic. It's like we could say franchisee coach, but then or franchise coach, but people get confused. So we say field coach. We're referring to like FBCs, franchise business coaches, regional directors, area director, whoever is supporting the franchisees, even if that is, like you said, on the phone or on Zoom. That's who we're referring to. So yeah, some traits kind of came out there, or one trait was just being a coach yourself in the past, and understanding that. Let's get into in a minute. We'll get into the credibility piece because that. And by the way, I just realized I didn't say that the people will have read this maybe, but the topic for today is really about what makes an effective field coach or franchise support person. But I feel like a subtopic will be this credibility piece because it's such a hot topic that people are trying to figure out. So, but let's dial back and talk about the DNA, like some of the traits that you have seen. Again, this isn't you just making this up. This is over 7 years that you've either had or seen that people have that make a coach successful.
Yes. And I think this is where we'll dive a little bit into credibility, because
Hmm.
it is so important that the field coach has credibility without an ego. And there's a way to build credibility without without solely building yourself up and telling the franchisee how great you are. You need to know the business cold. You need to know the unit economics. You need to know, like the back of your hand, you need to know the P&L and the different components and the relationship between the different components on the P&L. You need to understand the marketing model, ROI. Like there's the business model itself, you need to know cold, because that's going to give you the tools that you need to ask the right questions
Hmm.
and solve problems effectively. And that builds credibility. So, another thing is if you don't know the answer as a field coach, um, just say so. You know, that builds trust and credibility in itself as well. And the value that you add to the franchisee is that oftentimes, if you don't know the answer yourself, you have the tools to be able to go find the answer, whether that's with another franchisee, the answer lies within another franchise's business, or with your team, home office, a specific department. But it's very important that you admit when you don't know the answer and that you follow up quickly when you do know the answer. The other thing I would say, oh, go ahead.
No, no, go keep going. I love
No,
it.
I just say, a coach who has a bias towards action instead of advice.
Yeah.
So, oftentimes, coaches can get into, they know the answer and they just give advice. But your role as a field coach is to help the franchisee choose what to do next, or what decision to make next, or what is the next move you're going to make, an action you're going to take to get to where you want to go. And I think um, a bias towards that, as opposed to just giving advice, is really important and can come up in the interview process, just in terms of how they've solved problems in the past.
Hmm. Keep going if you want to share more, and
Yeah,
then
I
we'll
just had a couple more
yeah,
things.
let's just run through, and then we'll reflect on that.
Yes. Another, important piece is a coach being comfortable with tension and not necessarily feeling the need to always solve things super quickly. Oftentimes, problems and challenges, they need to sit and they need to pause. The franchise owner is the one at the end of the day that runs their business, that takes the action and makes decisions. And to be able to hold tension to that self reflection for themselves, by asking questions, your actions aren't aligning with your goals. Like, help me understand what's going on, or, just really giving them space um, to have that tension just build, and that's how they're going to make different decisions and take a different direction. And I think sometimes it can be easy to avoid those tough conversations, and that's not actually how we add value. Like, we add value by having those tough conversations with those with empathy and understanding. And that's the other thing I would say is, you know, in the same breath, your field coaches have to have empathy, and they have to have a level of an emotional intelligence to be able to look at a franchisee and address when there's fear, like call it out. When you're seeing fear in that franchisee, when you're seeing doubt, when you're seeing burnout, like you must be able to call that out and address, because sometimes they can't even see it in themselves. And that's where you add value as their coach. So those are just a couple things I'd start off with.
So good. I love it. Oh my gosh. I'm like, oh, I want to talk about this. I want to talk about that because there's just so many important things have been said here. Um, I'm going to go back to this one because it really, for us, it's a big thing we're talking about at AC Inc. and teaching, of course, is we say that we talk about the difference between consulting and coaching. And so we say that consultant is what most people are doing right now. It's the traditional way of supporting franchisees. And it's better than doing just hotline support. Like, it's something. But what that looks like is I'm the consultant. I'm going to come in and I have all the answers for you. And I'm going to solve your problems for you, like you just were talking about. And and I'm the expert, and you're going to tell me I have this issue, and then I'm going to solve it. And what we talk about is as that support person, you leave or finish the meeting and you feel like, I feel so good. I helped them, like they're like, oh, thank you. You helped me. And then 5 minutes later, you realize, like, but I didn't help them grow their business. And they become dependent on you. And now when they need something, they're not empowered to go figure it out because you just told them the answers. So their way to figure it out is find you. Now, what if they can't find you and they're stuck? But then what we see also is it gets even worse when not only are they uh, dependent, but once they realize in their mind that they know more than you because they've been running their business and they know their market, which they do, but they think that you can't bring them value anymore because they don't have questions. Now they disengage, and now they don't need you, and that's why they don't show up for calls. And that I'll confess that was me as a franchisee. Our field support person would come and try to tell us things that we already knew and act authoritative, and that wasn't helping us grow our business. So coaching is what you just said. It's helping having those hard conversations and helping them reflect and all those things. So yeah.
Yeah, there's so much what you said there that resonated, and I just flashes of different situations over the years. And I think one thing I came to learn, and this is through me getting coaching, rigorous coaching on myself as a coach, is the franchisee will always be most bought into their own idea. And oftentimes when, you have a coach who's just giving, and from a great place, giving all the best ideas very quick to, and it comes from wanting to help and support, but um,
It's not
what it's
wrong.
what it feels what ends up happening is the franchisee comes back and they didn't do what you spoke about, they didn't get do the idea that you said, and then you're given more ideas and then they're still not doing it, and the reality is they're not bought into the ideas that you're giving. And if you just give a bit more space and ask more probing questions to really understand, they're going to uncover their own ideas. They know their market best, they know their customers best, and their ideas are going to go further because they're going to be more bought in and more action oriented than yours, which might be not as well thought out from their perspective and understood, if that makes sense. So,
Oh, the goal. It's just like kids, right? It's if you tell them something, they're often not going to do it. If they come up with it, and then I mean, you've probably heard this one. You'll get ready for this for when it matters for you with your little one there. That do you want to wear the red shoes or the blue shoes? Like they're decide like that's one small way, right? Like give them options or something. But I love what you're saying. Coaching creates space for the person on the other side of the coaching to come up with things. And yes, they're going to be more bought in, more likely to take action. That's another thing I loved. You said that a coach has a bias towards action, I think is how you worded
yeah.
it. So that goes together with that as well.
Yeah, there's a formula that stuck with me from a coach I had at one point, and is A times B equals C. If A is the quality of the idea, so let's say it's a 9 out of 10 quality idea that you're giving the franchisee, and B is their buy-in on it, so let's say they're like 2 out of 10, and then C is the outcome, like, 9 times 2
Yeah.
is 18. But if the quality of their idea is, let's say,
Oh, I like this.
60%, of yours, but they're very bought into it, they're 10 out of 10, 6 times 10 is 60, like the outcome is just going to be far greater. And you
Yes.
as the coach putting your ego aside to allow them space to come up with their own ideas, and of course using your experience to guide and shift how those questions are asked, because it's not just asking questions, it's how to ask the right questions, and there's prep that can go into that. But yeah, it's all about buy-in.
It is. So everything is in life. We're being understanding it, being bought in. That's when we take action. Otherwise, we don't. I mean, most people don't just want to be told what to do. So maybe early stage franchisees, but it wears off pretty quick, right? Okay, the two other areas I want to get to here, and I'm sure we could go deeper on the traits or what makes a success, not necessarily traits, but the things that make a successful coach. But let's go. So credibility of the coach, I want to get to, but first I want to get to. Um, what we've talked here about like learning these things like these how can you learn like how to like people might be sitting here going, well, that's great, Angela and Carly, but how do you have that, like how do you have that conversation or whatever? So are these things that can be learned is what I'm getting at, like some of these things have you seen coaches and what things can't be learned? I'll just let you talk on that, you know where I'm going with that.
Yes, so much can be learned. And I think, we'll talk about the details, and there's so much of what your team does that supports field coaches and what can be learned. In terms of let's maybe start with what I believe from my experience can't as much be learned.
Mhm.
And first would be ownership, like somebody who takes full ownership over their actions, their results, their their KPIs, like somebody uh, who their results are a result of themselves, you know, and they also understand that they're held accountable to um, you know, it's important that I, as the coach, hold them accountable and they understand what that means. But there's just a sense of ownership and the maturity that comes with that is critical and something that you can just somebody has or they don't.
Can I
Um,
jump in and just ask you to give like or like what's an example of somebody um, taking ownership and versus not?
Great.
Just so
Yes.
people know
So
what we
let's
mean.
say, you know, it's quarter end and I'm having a quarter end review with the coach on their division performance of their franchisees, and they have a certain group of franchisees who didn't hit their goals. And I asked the coach, you know, why didn't they hit their goals? And if they're, you know, saying, oh, they, you know, they didn't follow the system, they didn't take my advice at every call they came back and they didn't do what they were supposed to, like that's not ownership as a
Mhm.
coach. You know, you what I like to see is then reflect on what they could have done differently as a coach to impact their results of those franchisees,
Right.
and self-reflecting on maybe their coaching style, maybe the quality of prep, maybe their business acumen, maybe they can be tighter on understanding how to use our tools and frameworks and systems. um, there's a myriad of different options there, but just the way that they approach their own results and the results of their franchisees comes from a place of ownership instead of externalization.
Yeah, that was a great example. And I don't think you're saying that the franchise support person, field coach, is responsible for the franchisee success. That's not, they don't have to take ownership fully of that. It's more that, well, what can I do? Like, what can I own? What can I make the impact on? Is what I'm hearing. Is that correct? Like, you're not saying,
Absolutely.
oh, you're the friend, like, because there sometimes you can't get the franchisee, but then maybe it's saying, hey, Carly, you know, as my boss, my leader, like, I am going to own that. Like, there's probably something else I need help with. Can you help me figure that out? And then how can we brainstorm how I'm going to take action on that so I can get better at that thing? That's kind of what,
Absolutely.
right?
And that comes up in that self-reflection of where are my gaps, where do I need to improve, where my skills lie. And I think, yeah, as much as of course, it's the franchise owner and they own their results and their business success as a result of them. Our like we have a shared outcome of business success for that franchisee, and there is a level of ownership, no matter the circumstance, that the franchise coach can take on helping that franchisee achieve
Mhm.
their goal.
Yeah. And the more the franchisee isn't succeeding, the more the coach should really be self-reflecting and tapping into support resources to figure out how they can, what they can do and how they can help. And at some point that could get like, okay, maybe we need to move the franchisee on and all that, but they should be the one identifying that.
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So in case people didn't pick this up, that self-reflection is a big one too. So we're self-reflection, ownership. I think there, you were going
And
to,
coachability, I would say, is,
coachability.
you know, this
Yeah.
person needs to be open to feedback. Nobody's perfect. I'm certainly not perfect as a coach, and I make sure that my coaches know that, you know, I've got a certain style and I've got a certain way that I gravitate towards. Doesn't mean that it's the perfect way. It's using my strengths and my skill set in service of the outcomes of the franchisee. And my job is to help you find your authentic and strength based approach to coaching that still maintains the same framework, that still achieves the same outcomes. And so, the coach's ability to be coachable is
Mhm.
so important. I think just anyone in life, professionally, you know, in order to be your best, you have to be open to feedback, and really open, not just pretending to be open, not just saying that you're open, but really like asking for feedback, taking time to self-reflect. What could I have done better to impact the situation or impact this franchisee's business differently? And your ability to do that and have that openness is just really what's going to make you a great coach.
Those three really intertwine. It's those are like that we. I think we talked about three different ones there. So the ownership, the coachability, and the
Self-awareness.
self awareness. They're very intertwined. They
Yes.
but you need them all, right?
Yes.
Is there anything else you want to point? Was that kind of the main things there? Because if there's anything
There's
missing,
another one that you know, I often, we refer to it in our business as Sherlocking,
yes.
which is essentially someone's curiosity, like a coach's ability to put their ego aside and really understand a situation, like asking layer beneath questions about what's going on, and
Hmm.
to really be curious about what's happening at the franchisee level. And, sometimes we just like, we want to check the box. We've got a certain amount of time on a call. We've got to, get to the next thing. And field coaches are absolutely incredible. They're so busy. They give so much of themselves to the franchisees. But I think sometimes, the curiosity is what really can help uncover the root issues of situation. And sometimes people just aren't curious. Like it's something that some people, are more curious than others. And I think that what I've seen is the curiosity, especially when you're looking to solve unique problems at the ground level, can be really helpful for the franchisee to also self-reflect and find answers that they may not know through the questions that you're asking. So yeah, we call it Sherlocking because you're really trying to dig deep to understand the problem.
That is so good because what we see all the time is coaches are solving the wrong problem. They're like, right? The franchisee says, "Well, this is my problem." And then they're like, "Well, let's solve that." But it's like, "Well, hold on. Why is this the problem? Why?" And then you keep going deeper and you find out that this over here is if we fix this, all of this will get fixed. So I love
Exactly.
yeah, that's good. Curious nature. And so, this making me realize, like, I often use the term the DNA of a, high performing franchisee or the DNA of a, high performing field coach, franchise support person. But really, like, so some things can be coached and trained. These are the things that you think would be more ideal, like they have to have them. Um, are there any that you think you've seen can be trained that people might not think can be trained, like coached and trained, like could somebody maybe learn about having to take more ownership or something else we didn't talk about where you've seen people might empathy or like if they understand it again they have to be coachable so
Yes. And I think that's why, like, I was reflecting coming into this conversation, and I was like, this is such a great conversation because I think like this, the idea of the DNA of a perfect field coach, it's like what's the silver bullet? And I think we're
oh
having this,
by the way every franchisor asks us this like what are
right.
you looking for and I'm like you can only
Yes,
get certain things and then you have to develop them.
exactly. And I think it is challenging. And that's why we're having this conversation, is because you see so many different, shapes and sizes of successful field coaches, and almost like types of field coaches that contradict each other. Like this person comes from a lot of experience and they're fantastic. This person has no experience, like myself, super fresh, and it's fantastic and so, there certainly is some commonalities, and I think, you know, bottom line, the field coach has to know the business cold. And I said that in the beginning.
Yeah.
Um, what can be trained is an understanding of the business model, the unit
Mhm.
economics, the P&L,
Yeah.
the marketing ROI, how all of these things can be trained and taught and coached. And that is how you build credibility with franchisees, knowing the business code, helping them understand their numbers. So there's a big chunk there that can be coached and trained. And I think it's how do you effectively coach and train is another conversation. And I think that's what your team does fantastically well. And in partnership with the franchisors, understanding the business model. But yeah, absolutely. I was, like I said, fresh, and those were things I had to learn very quickly and use effectively in my outcomes based coaching calls with these
Mhm.
franchisees. The other thing would be coaching frameworks, like whether it's tools,
Mhm.
systems, uh, you know, models uh, that the coach can use to help drive outcomes. And that can be coached and taught, and can also be incredibly helpful for a field coach to level up their support. And the other thing I would say is you can teach effective communication, I believe, and I think effective our franchisees are our business, like as the franchise support, like we serve them. And it's effective communication is how we work together. Like it's on Zoom, it's through email, it's through text. And I think when you're working with a franchisee, you always have to come from a place of understanding. Like the field coach needs to know what it's like to walk in their shoes and come from a place of understanding in the way that they communicate. And that's also something that can be taught, and also come through experience. And so it, we can we can probably go down a whole other rabbit hole about like how to help a coach understand where a franchisee is coming from if they don't have franchise experience themselves in terms of running a franchise. But yes, I think it's just communicating in a way that puts the franchisee in the driver's seat, and that can be taught.
Oh, yeah, it sounds like we're going to need to do this again, like as part two at some point down the road. Okay, just one thing that's interesting is when I'm listening to you say this, and this will kind of segue us in a second over to the a little bit more about the credibility before we wrap up. So we at AC Inc. we talk about the three-legged stool is what we're looking for an effective field coach, and I'm not saying they have to come in with all these three things, but they need to have these things to be effective. And so whether you can train them, they come in with them. So it's knowing the brand, like you said, knowing the business cold, like the way you're putting that. So like really understanding this business, and then and I'd say like having some passion for it, loving it. Like you have to be an ambassador of this business. Number two is the business acumen. That's and that kind of communication comes into that a little bit, but it's those are kind of related the way I'm hearing it from you. So I think we're aligned there. And then the third one is we say like the emotional and social intelligence skills, and that's definitely communication is part of that too. It's all that like it's having the how to have those tough conversations, the curiosity that comes in, but how to maybe use like you said the frameworks for putting that into practice. Like how do you use curiosity to make it more effective with franchisees? So that was interesting. I think I'll just leave it at that for the DNA, not the DNA, but the three kind of buckets we look at. But I want people that are listening to hear this because nowhere did we ever say that they have to have been a franchisee or they have to have been an FBC for that matter. We've seen that actually go side or the other way. It can be good for credibility and for effectiveness, but actually those are kind of two different things. So effectiveness and credibility, we're kind of more on the effectiveness, but the credibility piece. Now let's go there. That comes up in that if franchisors see that if a field coach or anyone supporting doesn't have credibility, then the franchisee doesn't want to listen to them. And so there's different things that can give that person credibility. And I don't think it's just one thing. I think it could either be a combination. Well, you already said something earlier on. Maybe I'll start with this. Admitting if you don't know the answer. Like we said you don't have to be the expert. You start by admitting you don't know the answer. That's one quick tip for people to go take. If you're trying to build credibility, it's not about having all the answers. What are some other things that you think contribute to the credibility from a franchisee's perspective so that the franchisee will want to build a relationship and so the coach can be more effective?
With our coaching framework, we use a goals-based coaching framework. So as the coach, you're completely 100% focused on the franchisee's goal and helping them achieve that, which is typically a 12-month annual top line revenue goal that breaks down into supporting components in order to help them get there. And that coach is held accountable essentially to a division of franchisees that accumulate to an overarching goal, which is a sum of all of those franchisees' goals. So simply put, if the franchisee is hitting their goal, if on a week-to-week basis, you're building credibility with them. Like at the end of the day, when they win, we win. If they're actually getting outcomes that they are looking to achieve, you're building credibility. So it's how do you help them get outcomes? It goes back to what I was saying earlier. It's an action-based bias versus just giving advice. So every call is focused on what are the actions you're going to take to get to the goal that you set for your business that you care about because of your overarching why of why you got into this business in the first place. What are these actions that are going to take? How are we going to circle back on the outcome of those actions? And what do you think could hinder your ability to do those actions? And like just really carving out like what is everything that could impact you not, achieving what you're going to set out to in the next week.
Mhm.
And, it's holding tight a cadence and accountability to their goals, and you're making small, hopefully you're making small movements and improvements, and they're achieving the outcomes they're getting over time. And I think as a coach, you're using your tool set to help them achieve those goals. So you're giving them the supporting piece, you're helping them with that marketing resource, you're helping them get to the right specialist to solve that problem within your team. And so again, I just like the action orientation to your conversations, making sure there's clear next steps coming out of your calls is everything.
Yeah, well, and that you get, so also what I'm hearing is you get credibility by showing that you truly are there to help them be successful, and it's
Yes.
not about franchisees hate it when field team members are like, oh, you have to hit this goal, otherwise you're not optimizing the market, or like we're going to try to use coaching techniques to help them see that that's possible, and hopefully make them want, like help motivate them. That's coaching techniques, right? How to motivate them, how to drive them, how to hold them accountable. But it really all comes down to showing that you care about them and their goals.
Yes.
And so nothing of that said to me, they have to have been a franchisee. It definitely helps. We see it help, but it doesn't mean that that franchisee, like they might have credibility because they've known the business, but we often see it go the other way because the franchisees are like, well, you're on the other team now. You're on the team that's against me. I mean, that's a culture problem if they're actually thinking that. But you're on the corporate team now, so I don't. Your credibility is a bit questionable. So, what do you say about like it's probably good if somebody has come from another brand and maybe they've been in the field before or a franchisee, but is that the first thing you look for? Like, where does that fit in?
This is where you probably see I just light up. This is where I'm so passionate speaking about this because I came with like I would say I was not a franchise owner. I had
Yeah.
no experience in the business model, no experience in franchise business coaching. And so I can really speak from that side of things, as well as I've hired experienced coaches. And so I do understand that end of the spectrum as well, just from experience of building my team of coaches. But in terms of, sorry, pause. Remind me the question one more time.
Yeah, yeah, So, the if the franchisee or the
Oh,
coach has
yes,
been a
got it,
franchisee.
got it. Mom brain. Um, so if the franchise coach has not been a franchisee themselves, from my experience, what has been so imperative is that you throw them into the field as soon as possible. And I was thrown into the field. I think it was my first couple weeks. I was doing online training, and my boss said, "Oh, you're going off to Calgary, and you're going to go in the field with our top franchisee." And it was essentially a test of like, what are our top franchisee going to say about you as their support person in the field before we start putting you with other franchisees in our system. I want to feel confident that you have some of these traits that you can be taught, you are coachable, all these things. And that is something I've maintained with my team is if they don't have franchise experience, and actually even if they do,
Mm.
getting them into the field as quickly as possible with our franchisees is the fastest way they're going to learn our model, learn our unit economics, understand our franchisees business at the ground level. And I also just want to caveat by saying in our business we are a very community guerrilla based marketing tutoring franchise. So for us, the franchise coach understanding on the ground how to build and scale a business and build and scale your tutor roster is absolutely critical to helping a franchisee grow their business. So yeah, throwing them into the field, being shoulder to shoulder. A franchisee needs to feel like you've walked a mile in their shoes. And whether you actually have because of franchise ownership or because you've been alongside them in the field and you see their challenges day to day, that builds credibility. You're not just sitting in your ivory tower giving theory based advice. You've really been alongside them, seen their struggles, and help them solve these, challenges.
That is so good. And I've heard you say that before, and I always flash back to when I was in my store and somebody from our home office would come in. If they jump behind the counter, I was like, they get it. They like, even though they're not getting everything at that moment. I'm like, yes, like they jump behind the counter and serve customers is what I'm saying there. Yeah, it's such a huge piece. It's a bunch of things. And then also I believe you guys, I know you guys have been big on professional development, so there's that piece as well, right? So just to summarize, again, like showing that you care about the franchisee's goals and admitting you don't know something before pretending you do. If they have been a franchisee, you still would like being out in the field, giving them that field that's I love that side to side, shoulder to shoulder experience. Maybe they've worked for a franchisor before, but that's not in itself enough. Like you want to do
Right.
all these things still. So, okay, time is flying by as it always does for you and I. And so I think well, any last things you want to say before we do the Go Be Awesome challenge?
I think we got to do a part two. There's so much. This is like I said, this is really where the rubber meets the road for me. And
I
so
asked the right
any
cast.
place you want to dig in further, I'm more than happy to do a
Yeah.
part two.
Awesome. Okay, well that's the your last thing about that. Okay, well, we're gonna do it again. So Go Be Awesome challenge. So we always like to make sure our listeners leave with something they can go do right now. You love action, we love action. What is something that people could right now go do this week to go be awesome?
Ultimately, your field coaches are should be driving performance of your franchisees. I think we could all agree that that's the most value of the field team that you have is your ability to drive the performance of the franchisees. They win, we win. So I think what you could do right now is have a real conversation with each of your coaches individually and ask them, what are you doing specifically to positively impact the goals of your franchisees? Maybe you pick a couple franchisees and you dig deep. Like, why are they better because of you? Like, be specific. Help me understand the exact things that you did to impact their outcomes. And I think that's going to give you a lot of information about how they operate as a coach, how they think, how they take ownership and accountability. But then also maybe understand their gaps and where they might need more support. You could also ask them, where do you feel most confident in your role, and where do you feel most confident that you're adding value? In addition, also asking them, where do you feel least equipped, or where do you feel least energized in your role? And really have an understanding of, where their outcomes based approach to franchisee support, but also where they need some more coaching and support themselves. And again, if you have a team that's self-reflective and takes ownership, this should be a very uh, outcome-based conversation where you leave this field coach and they have actionable next steps of how they're going to improve and how you can better support them to achieve the goals of the organization. And I think sometimes just pausing with the coach, giving them space to self-reflect, giving them space to share what they believe their strengths are, can also give you the ability as, for example, my role as the manager of the coaching team, I have the ability to shift and shape their roles more towards their strengths. And what's going to make an amazing field support team is everyone having different strengths that are utilized against the goals of the business uniquely. And the only way you can really understand that is really like peeling back the layers, understanding their strengths, understanding how that impacts specific outcomes of the business. And you have the ability to deploy those strengths in different areas based on the strategic goals of the organization. And yeah, some of those questions I would say have given me the deepest conversations with the coaches that have had probably the most outcome-based next steps.
I love it. That we see that the best coaches want to get better, and it's all the things you're saying. So they want these conversations. I love that, and so I wish we had more time, but we will have to maybe do a part two. So thank you so much, Carly. I Your wisdom, especially at your young age. I know you're not a baby anymore, but you've got a lot of wisdom for somebody that's in the stage you're at in life. You've got exciting things ahead. I encourage people to follow Carly on, just connect on, find her on LinkedIn or any social media. Is there anywhere people should go more than others, like Instagram, social, like?
Yeah, I'm most like both personally and professionally active on Instagram. More than welcome, at Carly Arnott. Definitely LinkedIn. I love connecting and learning from everyone in the franchise industry and what you do with your team, Angela, just bringing everyone together. And the power of franchising is the speed at which we can learn. And I love how you bring different brands, different specialists, different coaches, everyone together to just learn how do we be our best for our franchise organizations. And any way I can help do that for others as well. I just absolutely love that. Feels like my coaching juices are also being filled. So thank you so much for including me today. I look forward to doing this again. It's always such a good time.
Awesome. So now, listeners, if anything shifted for you and you're starting to think, well, we need to think more about the effectiveness of our field coaches, reach out. We've got everything from free roundtables for the field support teams to our certification program and some other things in between. So love to do whatever we can to help level up your field coaches so they can be more effective, and everyone wins. We unlock that hidden profitability in the franchise system, which helps overall growth. So thank you again, Carly, and everyone, go be awesome.